Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with episode 13 of my ongoing Italy's Holocaust. Looking at the films from 1979 to 1994, compliments of one Jim Harper. If you don't have it, there's not many out there. This is a nice little reference guide in terms of the films within these 2 years. He, as with a few, man, and it's going to happen more than, he rakes this one over the coals bad. In fact, let me just get this out of the way. Right off the bat, he refers to this absurd Spanish-Italian co-production as one of the worst zombie movies ever made. It's been called the worst horror movie ever made, period. And then he just concludes a few thoughts here with basically there's no reason to watch Hell of the Living Dead, a.k.a. Virus, a.k.a. Night of the Zombies, unless audiences are looking for mistakes and good beer drinking movie. Even then, I can think of a few films that would be more entertaining. Ouch. That hurts my heart, man. I am sold out Italian horror to the max. This hurts, man. This hurts. Look. This movie, Blue Underground release DVD. Look at the cover art, man. I know. This movie is a ripoff, man, of so many things, man. Dawn of the Dead being the main. The cover art, I mean, you think of Burial Ground, you think of The Gates of Hell. But here's the thing. This movie is one of the main reasons why I wanted to start this series on Italy's Holocaust. And it really is this. When you're a kid and, you're going into a video store, renting, grabbing your stack of VHS tapes for the weekend. And you're like me, you're lucky enough you have a video store, man, where they got an incredible, insane horror section in the back. And shelves full, just littered with Italian horror films, man. I take this home, man, right? I take this home. And from its opening frames, man, the music, and I don't know what came first in my life. I really can't tell you. Was it this? Was it Dawn of the Dead? I probably Dawn of the Dead. Maybe I remember we taped it on VHS, recorded it up, probably HBO or something. This I would have rented. But when you're a kid, man, and you're sitting there at night on your living room floor in front of your console, your 25-inch console TV, that's what we had, man. In the darkness of your living room, man, and from the opening frames, man, it's like Eli Roth, man, says, the thing about Italian film is storytelling over things that are just mass marketed to people, man. As a kid, man, I'm sitting there, I'm watching the opening frames of this movie, this chemical plant, man, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, man, and things progressively just go from bad to worse to absolutely horrifying, man, and then boom, psh, you're with this commando SWAT team, man, taking down some eco terrorists, who are trying to warn the world that doom, that the doom and the apocalypse is coming because of these hope centers, man, and that are creating some, we learned probably a chemical weapon of some sorts. A sweet death is the project, right? And then next thing you know, man, these guys, this SWAT team, man, who, just merciless killers, man, are dropped in the middle of New Guinea jungle, man, to go find this chemical plant and ascertain just what the freaking crap's going on, man. And it's just, you're a kid and this is new, this is different, this is not what you are used to seeing. And the world of Italian cinema just starts to open up to you, and you're like, God, this is great, man. Now, yeah, I'm 52 now, and I see this movie in a little bit of a different light today. But my love for it doesn't change at all. This movie, man, Bruno Mattei, man, the one thing he did do is he ripped concepts off left and freaking right. And didn't have the money to pay Goblin to provide a score, so they pay the money to basically take some tracks off of Dawn of the Dead, Contamination. There's another one in there too. Conceptually, yeah, Dawn is the blueprint, man, right? But there's something else going on here. But the main thing is, it's so the rewatchability factor in this movie is just, it never stops. I mean, it's just one of those movies, man, you don't outgrow. But if you're a kid and you're not, and this stuff's new to you, and you're not, this is not what you're used to getting in terms of filmmaking, you know, as a kid, you're not sitting there thinking Bruno Mattei, you're not thinking rip-offs, you're not thinking about, you know, all this, you know, all the stock footage. Of course, you know, VHS, you know, things were a little bit different. Stock footage wasn't as noticeable back in the day. When you're watching things on a 25-inch console TV and it's a VHS tape, things aren't as pronounced. I mean, you believe this thing got a 4K release? Obviously, the stock footage is going to stand out pretty well on your beautiful 4K TVs. But imagine if you're one of the ones out there that really hate this movie or find absolutely nothing in this movie, try to see it from, you know, 14 or 15-year-old kid's perspective, sitting there in their living room in the darkness, watching something so different unfold. In a movie that's beautifully bookended, by the way, from our opening in the chemical plant where all things go bad, to the end when our commando unit and a journalist who is also trying to ascertain what's going on finally get to the chemical plant, and things progressively for them go from bad to worse to the ultimate end of an apocalyptic ending that you know, has its eyes on zombies dead walk across the bridge into the city. Even sort of the unsettling, you know, unknown of Dawn of the Dead as the helicopter takes off from the roof of the mall and flies off, not knowing what's ahead for these characters. There is nothing but apocalyptic doom in store for the world, man, because of what these chemical plants have produced. You know, in terms of new movies, you know, the one movie that I thought about, you know, Hell of the Living Dead, World War Z in a sense, in a weird sense, but you know, this is one of those movies where you could take a lot of the central sort of themes and work it into, dare I say, remake. If you had somebody that was hardcore enough to pay Mattei the respect, pay Italian cinema the respect, and just really wanted to create a jungle adventure that was just. And again, too, I'm this little kid, you know, what do I know at this point? Growing up, Tarzan, you know, Gilligan's Island, you know, I love the jungle, you know, even in Gilligan's Island, man, the threat of the headhunters from time to time, I mean, it's kind of a terrifying thing for a little kid to be watching, right? And you know, but just that love affair I started to develop with island horror, jungle horror, the unknown and what was happening in other parts of the world. Where is the apocalypse going to, you know, come from and fall upon us, you know, in the end of ends. This movie's got a lot to like in terms of just plain old-fashioned entertainment. Yeah, you can get caught up on the technical aspects of this film. Some would refer to this as just an absolute train wreck, but a train wreck that, quite honestly, it's like I'm thinking about Violent Night when the scene when Santa Claus there, our hero from Stranger Things, when he sets up the guy with the grenade, I think, and he starts to walk away and he stops and he just says, "I gotta look," and he turns around, of course. This is that movie, man. You just gotta look. You just gotta watch. And it does have there is a real disturbing component there, somewhere midway, some stock footage from a Mondo film I think Mattei was connected to, that really does have some disturbing elements, and quite frankly, probably should not have been used, I don't think, because it's too real. It's a real life component placed into a fictional sort of fantasy film, horror film, right? And these kind of some of the things that you got to deal with from time to time with Italian cinema as well. But this movie is just, man, this movie, they eat the living. You know, again, I'm a kid. I'm grabbing the VHS box. You know, I'm looking at the cover. I'm like, what on earth is this? Bruno Mattei, who is that? they eat the living, you know, and then you're a kid, right? And we don't see movies quite the same as an adult as we did. You know, I think of Up From the Depths. When I got that Scream Factory release and I revisited that movie after years, I sat there the whole time thinking to myself, what was it that I liked? Because that, I remember as a kid, the TV spots, that was a movie, man. I absolutely love that movie. Rewatch now, but this, there is, maybe it's just my love for Italian cinema, but there is a lot, there's just the entertainment go on, man. It's just the gore, the practical effects, you know, the zombie kills, and yes, some of it is absolutely ludicrous and it knows no bounds in its absurdness, if I can say. Fragasso on the writing, Mattei on the directing. Of course, we know Mattei from Rats, Nights of Terror, right? But most importantly, Zombie 3. You know, that was an important film for Mattei because him and Fragasso both rescued that film from the unfortunate, you know, Fulci having to be pulled away from that because of sickness. And it's easily a better film, technically speaking, than Hell of the Living Dead. But this is enjoyable nonetheless. And this is the reason why I wanted to, you know, spend time on this series and just start going through Italian films. Because I was lucky enough, man. I was lucky enough as a kid to have a video store that had this like castle in the back that you can go up into. You had to actually walk up the stairs a little bit, cobwebs everywhere, shelving units all over the place. And they had this one shelving unit, man, that it was just like this world of Fulci and Argento and, you know, and Mattei and of course Fragasso and the zombie films franchise there, Demons, Lamberto Bava, Mario Bava, and, you know, of course, in the others, you know, the rest of the horror section littered, but with some crazy cover art pieces, you know, with George A. Romero and yeah, we had our mainstream releases, right? Your Friday the 13th. Your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Halloweens, and all that jazz. But there was something different in Italian cinema, something that just carried you away from the moment you're in to a really different place, different, conceptually different aesthetics. Even the dubbing added, you know, layers of difference in viewing experience. And as a kid, these things are so much more pronounced because you're seeing things you're not seeing in mainstream. And yeah, there were some great horror movies, man, in the 80s. Mainstream, there was some really good horror stuff. But there was something different about movies like this. And in terms of your imagination running wild, going into the deep jungles with a SWAT team trying to figure out why are all these zombies happening. There's just that adventure quality to a kid that is quite unreal aesthetically, I think. And so anyways, yeah, it just, some of the stock footage is, excuse me, is you know, some of it's just, I mean, some of the cutting and the editing, it just does not make sense, man. But I mean, that's, again, you're wrapped up in a story, and you're supposed to put certain things off in terms of things that make sense, right? And things, and the beautiful thing about this movie is there are, yeah, points of travel that just don't seem to connect well, but it is bookended well. I mean, you begin in a place, you end in a place, and you're giving that apocalyptic doom sense that the world is headed towards a nightmarish scenario. Compliments of man, and, you know, and kind of, to be honest, a bit relevant, considering that we just went through an era of sickness that apparently stemmed from a lab. So it does come home a little bit when you think about these things. Anyways, Italy's Holocaust, the film's from 79 to 94. I don't know what's up next, man. Maybe Zombie Holocaust, man. Maybe. But if it's been a long time or you've never seen it, you know, check it out. But try to see it from the perspective of seeing it as a kid on a 25-inch console TV on VHS format. and your world is opening up before you in terms of things that you're just not used to seeing. And this is why I want to do this. So obviously Fulci lives, right? Bills won, just barely escaped their playoff game the other day. Probably shouldn't have won, but they escaped and move on to the divisional round. My Dogs are national champs for a second straight year, and life is pretty good in football, but we'll see about those Bills, right? And as always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream, not